first of all, it's an exciting day at Notre Dame, and it's exciting because it's centered upon our future. And our future is predicated on the last game that you play. And so we begin today by talking about what our future is going to look like. And I think we all know, and I've made it pretty clear, that after the last game you play, you want to begin taking that next step forward. And for us, taking that next step forward is to continue to build our football program within and developing football players so when they get back on that field in 2013, we finish it. We finish it off. And this class is that first step towards finishing off 2013 the right way. So let me just begin by saying that this recruiting process, as you all know, requires so much time and energy, not only from the coaches. And I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you right now that nowhere in the country does an assistant coach have to do as much as they do at the University of Notre Dame. We're recruiting coast to coast, from Massachusetts to California, and our coaches have to be there. It's not just about a particular geographical location. It's also about getting coaches and position coaches in different areas. We're going to have 15 states represented, but we were in over 25 states, and we were in many others that we were just setting up for 2014. My point is this: there are many people that are involved in this recruiting process, but the central figures are the assistant coaches that are out on the road and working diligently to bring the very best players here. On campus, we couldn't do this without getting the recruits here. Tim McDonald, who heads up those recruiting efforts, Sarah Lawless in our recruiting office, those two working together just do an incredible job of the logistical planning, the organization of getting the player or getting the student athlete here, and do an incredible job. While they're here, they're on this campus, we need some assistance as well, and we get it from our admissions office. Bob Mundy, who does a lot of the work in admissions, and Don Bishop, under his guidance, gives us the opportunity to get these young men into campus. And they give them the opportunity to have a personal interview. That doesn't happen everywhere. They take their time to do it. Our athletic director, Jack Swarbrick, meets with the student athletes on campus as well. Those are important pieces in this recruiting process. When you bring them on campus, you can't just bring them to the basketball game. You can't just take them over to a hockey game. You've got to have them meet the people that are going to make a lot of the decisions here on campus. So I want to point them out. And I think finally Adam Sargent in our academic support area, he gives us an opportunity to let the parents and student athletes know what they're in store for when they come here to Notre Dame. So I wanted to get those thank yous out in particular for what they've done in this recruiting process. Let's look at the 2013 class, and I'm going to give you the sound bites as I see them. With this class, it really addresses some of our depth needs across the board. We played the national championship game under 85 scholarships. We did not have 85 scholarship players at that time. We had some depth issues, and I think we've addressed those depth issues across the board in year 3. We targeted in year 1 and 2, we addressed comprehensively needs throughout the entire class in year 3, and that's what I'm most excited about, is that now we'll have the depth in the certain areas that we felt like we did not have in 2012 and in this off season. So that's how I look at the class in general. We've got 15 states, as I mentioned, and another quality that we really were looking for were winners. I think the winning percentage of this group, we did some numbers and crunched some numbers, is like 74% winning percentage. These kids come from winning programs. They've won state championships. So across the board, they represent everywhere in terms of geographics, but they represent winners as it relates to the kind of player that we wanted. So I think those are things that I wanted to point out as well. I think the last thing would be I will take a moment now to give you some perspective on each one of our recruits. I'm not going to read the superlatives. You guys can go online and get all that information. I want to give you some of the personal insight about each one of these players and how they fit and how we believe moving forward they make us a better football team. We'll begin with Hunter Bivin. You know, what we have here is a young man with great versatility on the offensive line. He played tackle, he moved to center in the All-Star game, played flawlessly at that position. Here's a young man that comes in with the size and strength and the versatility on the offensive line, an area that, as you know, with 5 offensive line commits, was very this recruiting class. Greg Bryant. Again, when we talk about a specific need within the program, the loss of Sear Wood, Theo Riddick, Greg Bryant puts himself in a position to compete. What we really love about Greg is, again, a guy that has shown a proficiency of catching the football as well as running physically tackle to tackle. He's a guy that and you guys saw this later in the year, the way Theo ran for us between the tackles. We think we get that kind of physical play with Greg Bryant. He's a well-conditioned athlete. He's got great instincts in running the football, but he also, we love the fact that he can catch the football as well. Outstanding football player. His dad is a coach, coaches at the high school. We just love that kid that comes from a coach's family. He really understands the game. Devin Butler out of Gonzaga Prep in DC. First of all, what we really love about recruiting at Gonzaga is that these young men understand what it's like to be here at Notre Dame. They're in that kind of faith-based environment. They understand that they're going to be challenged in the classroom, so these are easy fits for us in the recruiting process. Devin, obviously at the cornerback position, is a need that we have within our program. With injuries last year and graduation the year before, we were thin obviously this year, and we were able to find a way to get it done back there. Now we can add some depth to the cornerback position. He's an exciting player that's going to come in and compete immediately. Michael Deeb, you know, again, I think sometimes when we talk about superlatives as it relates to stars and things of that nature, those are important, but we had eyes on Michael Deeb. Michael came here to our camp. We were able to observe Michael. Coach Diaco was able to spend time, and we know what we want from that position. We have a pretty clear understanding of the skill set necessary and the intelligence. And here's what else he brings. He brings an energy to everything he does. When he walks in that locker room, it's time to play football. And if you're not locked in, he's going to make sure he says something to you. We love his energy. We love the way he plays the game. And obviously, from our standpoint, feel like he's a guy that can come in and obviously compete for us. Steve Elmer is one of our mid-year graduates from Midland. You know, again, I think when you look at all the things, he's got the size, he's 6'5", he's got great feet. It's 300 pounds right now, but looks like he could put on as many pounds as we need to in strength and conditioning with Steve. Bright, articulate, he fits all of the profiles that we're looking for with great feet, athleticism, can play on the edge, play the tackle position for us. And again, just a great student and a great young man. William Fuller out of Roman Catholic in Philadelphia. It's nice to get back into the city of Philadelphia and Roman Catholic in particular. Again, when we talk about profile schools that really hit and understand Notre Dame, Roman Catholic is one of those institutions. He's also a young man that we believe that, you know, if there's a guy that flew under the radar a little bit, it was William Fuller. The thing that really clearly stands out is his ball skills. He can run and catch the football. Anytime that we got a chance to observe him, he was running and catching. Just terrific ball skills. We think as he develops physically, he also has that speed, that top-end speed that can obviously impact football games. So excited about William. Mike Harmon is also one of our mid-year enrollees. That tight end position, as you know, we like to use it in multiple fashions, whether he's split out as a wide receiver or if he's inline blocking or moving him around. Mike fits that profile. He was an early commit to us. He was part of the interesting Irish mob, if you will, this year, which was taking its own life form online and through Twitter and Facebook, and he was one of those guys recruiting other players in this class. And I think that's a great thing. That says a lot about what he feels about Notre Dame and the kind of kids he wants in the class, and Mike was active in that. But he's going to be a fine football player for us. He continues to develop at that position. We've got an outstanding one. Torrey Hunter Jr., you know, I think what stands out with Torrey, first of all, is you know, he comes from a great family, and you probably know his dad, plays with the Tigers now, a long-time Golden Glove winner for the Angels and the Twins. He comes from a great family and a committed family, and I say committed not only to his education but to being the very best. I'll give you an example. We were in Torrey's home just about a week ago, and he, as many of you know, suffered a leg injury, and he's already up moving around after 2.5 weeks. The care and the commitment that he has. Here's a guy that's only going to get better and physically develop. We think he's got that burst, if you will, that ability to take it and go from anywhere on the field. We think he's an inside guy that can really make a difference for us within our offensive structure. And just a great family and a great young man. Rashad Kinlaw, and when we talk about Rashad, we just think, you know, obviously he played quarterback primarily. He got injured this year, but we love his size, his length, his athleticism. We think it's an untapped resource for us, and that we're going to only get him better and better physically. And he has the speed, he has the ability to play the ball. We think he's going to fit well at the cornerback position for us. He was somebody that we identified early in this process and felt like he would be a great addition to this class. And we've loved the fact that he's really embraced coming to Notre Dame. You know, the high school has not had a lot of students come in this area of the country, and to get him to come to Notre Dame says a lot about him. So we're really excited about Rashad too. Cole Luke, you know, when we talk about the depth across the board here, we've talked about Butler and Kinlaw, and now Cole Luke, another cornerback. You know, again, a state title. This guy plays on a championship football team. When you go around the high school, and you go around the program, you can sense it and feel it. We've got a great relationship with Coach Bellis, a former Notre Dame player here, and it's just a great fit. You know, when Cole came up in the summer, recruited by virtually everybody in the country, and I remember when we were talking about this, is that he called and kind of had a soft commit. In other words, he called and said, I think I'm going to commit, but what I want to do is I want to be able to say that a couple of times, and I want to see how it feels. So I think this was, you know, maybe on a Tuesday, and he said, I'll call you back on Saturday. And so we're waiting all week. How does it sound, Cole? You know, does it sound good? You like that you're saying that you're committed to Notre Dame? And finally, he called us back later in the week and said, Coach, I'm all in. So my point being, here's a kid who really thought about it. All of these kids gave a great thought about this commitment. That's why when we talk about this class, it is a solid class because they took the time to make this decision. They weren't you know, pressured into making a decision. This was something that took a lot of thought, and we're excited about having Cole. Jake Matuska, again, we talk about, you know, he led his team to a 13-1 record. Another winner, another guy that, you know, can play in the profile that we have at the defensive line position for us, but is also versatile enough that he can play on the other side of the ball. Our target is to play him on the defensive side of the ball. He's going to physically get bigger and stronger. We just like his work ethic, We're really excited about him as a person. He's going to fit in well here at Notre Dame, and another young man that really adds to the depth that we're looking for in our program. Mike Mcglinchey. Mike is another young man that, you know, as he continues to grow, we worry that Mike Bray's going to take him from us. He could be 6'11" here soon, but he's another young man that has the athleticism to play the tackle position, but he's athletic enough that he's played tight end. We were really impressed with the way he played basketball. He was a ferocious competitor, ran well, and is somebody that is going to continue to get stronger physically. But comes from a great high school, William Penn Charter School. It's just a perfect fit for us at Notre Dame. And again, on the offensive line, gives us that long reach guy that can play the tackle position for us. Colin McGovern, Colin out of Lincoln Way West here, and you know, to have linemen from the Midwest is something that we always look for. You know, it'd be nice to get somebody every year from this area. Colin is more than just a player from the Midwest. He's a physical, strong guy that can play inside for us, and you know, really felt early on in this process when we watched him compete. And again, here's another guy that came up to camp, and we got a chance to see him in person, and that makes such a big difference to us. And he'll be a nice player for us working inside out. John Montelis, another offensive lineman from Everett, Massachusetts, you know, comes from another great program. You know, Everett High School is probably the preeminent high school team in the state of Massachusetts. You know, 6'5", 305 pounds, and he looks. You know, we had a picture of the 5 offensive linemen together, and I remember just kind of kiddingly looking at, you know, John, and John's probably not 6'5", but, you know, he's well over 6'3", and he looks short compared to everybody else in that offensive line class. But he's not short on physical play. He will knock you out. He gets off the ball. He's physical at the point of attack. He played a lot of tackle. We see him moving inside for us. But again, just his personality, his makeup, his family. See, I see it from, you know, my guys are out there, you know, finding the talent, and then I get a chance to spend a lot of time with the families. And you know, single mom who's raised John. It's just a great story, you know, in terms of the success, you know, coming from Haiti and now getting an opportunity to be successful here at Notre Dame. James Onawalu, another one of our mid-year enrollees, part of the original Irish mob. He too was instrumental in helping put together our class. He was always somebody that we can count on to make a call or be up for a recruiting visit. This is a very talented player. Very talented. If you watch him work out, I know Coach Longo has got our guys in there already. Really loves his athletic ability. Versatile player. He's going to be on the offensive side of the ball, but you know, if we ever got into a bind, he certainly could play defense as well. But great attitude, just high energy. First student to ever graduate early at Cretin-Durham High School. That's pretty big for that school, and again, just another great fit for us. Doug Randolph, another great program at Woodbury Forest. Dual athlete, excellent lacrosse player, played basketball, could do a number of different things. You know, he's somebody that's long at 6'3", very versatile, can stand up or put his hand down. He gives us that kind of flexibility at that position. Great student, great family. I know I keep saying the same things, but they're true. I mean, these are really, this is why you're at Notre Dame. You get a chance to coach these kinds of kids, and he's a terrific young man, and he's going to be a nice football player for us as well. Max Redfield from Mission Viejo, Bob Johnson's his coach, and Bob's done an incredible job over the years of turning out elite players, and we think Max is an elite player. He's a young man that has a specific skill set that could, you know, see him play offense, he can play defense. He's going to play in that safety position for us, and we think he's a young man that can come in and compete He's got all of the athletic ability, and he's a very smart young man. I remember when he decided to come to Notre Dame and made that decision. It was a fairly lengthy process where he wanted to really take time to make the right decision. Those are the kind of kids, we're not getting these quick knee-jerk reaction decisions. These are kids that really took their time to make the right decision. So Mac's a terrific young man, great family, and a really good player. Corey Robinson out of San Antonio Christian. I think what really impressed us about Corey is that he's just beginning to blossom. He's just started to take hold in this game of football. As you know, the Robinson name, pretty familiar. You know, his dad obviously, you know, is a great parent and mentor, but he also probably had a little basketball for his sons growing up. And I think that transition out of basketball and focusing on football has given him now this opportunity to continue to grow as a football player. So we think we got a guy early on that has not even come close to tapping his potential. 6'5" plus receiver, and again, I love the fact that he's a guy that'll go up and get the football. Strong hands, and he runs surprisingly at 6'5", 6'6", he runs very well. So we're really excited about Corey. He too is a mid-year enrollee for us and doing quite well. Isaac Rochell, another state champion, Eagles Landing Christian High School. You know, I got a chance to spend some time in the high school, and you can just sense that, you know, the discipline and the faith and the way the football program is run, it's a great fit, Isaac coming here to Notre Dame. You know, I think Isaac's a guy that didn't play in a lot of the postseason games and didn't get a ton of exposure. It's a fine football player. I mean, we're have Isaac defensive line, and he's going to impact this program. I think he's got a huge upside, and we're really excited about getting a player of this caliber here to Notre Dame. Jalen Smith out of Bishop Luers, you know, again, the 2012 Buckus Award winner. I mean, we could list all of these things, but the thing that's most impressive is the character of this young man and his energy and his he just has it, you know. When he walks into a room, the room kind of lights up, and that's the kind of personality that he is. And he is one tough football player as well. He's got all the things that you're looking for, that quickness, that ability to strike. He can play any position, really. I mean, great running back as well. He'll play on the defensive side of the ball, and he's somebody that has great versatility, but he's also going to be a great leader here, and see great things for Jalen Smith. Durham Smythe out of Belton, another tight end that we really believe fits the style of the offense that we run. He's hasn't even tapped his potential at 6'5", 230, and he's 230 right now. He's going to be obviously a big physical player for us, but has the soft hands and the ability to get out and run routes. And we're excited about, you know, Durham coming in later in the process, but getting a chance to meet his family and spending time. It's a great fit. Durham, he grew up as a Notre Dame fan. You know, obviously being close to Austin, Texas, you know, they have a pretty large following in that area, but he had always been somebody that looked at Notre Dame carefully, and now given that opportunity, we were able to get him signed and here on campus. So Durham Smythe will be another one of those tight ends that will really do well here. Malik Zaire. Malik is an early enrollee as well. And you know, I think what I loved about Malik is when he came up here last spring, he sat in our quarterback meeting room, and in that meeting room, you know, you've got some really good quarterbacks. And when he left that meeting, he made it clear to me that this was the place he wanted to be. He loved the environment, he loved the coaching, he loved the opportunity to come in and run the offense. And that's looking at great competition and saying, I don't care about that. I'm going to come to Notre Dame because it's the right place for me academically, and it's the right place for me because I'm going to be the starter here at Notre Dame. And we love those kind of guys that have that attitude. And Malik obviously showed himself at that high level in camps that he went out and really excelled in. And you know, can throw it, he can run it. He's got great versatility at the quarterback position, and he's really, really smart kid. That wraps up our signing class. We feel like, you know, there's still some work to be done. The day is not over yet. Stay tuned. But those are the letters of intent that have been certified by Jen Vining-Smith in our compliance office, and that was a plug for Jen Vining-Smith. You see how I do that? I take care of everybody across the board. Who else do I got to get up there, Tim? Anybody? We're good? Okay. Excellent. With that, I'll open any questions.
Anybody that here has a question, just raise your hand. We'll get you a microphone. And as Coach Keller mentioned, this is a work in progress. We need to get you an updated version of our list here.
Coach, do you see Corey Robinson maybe making a move to tight end later?
You know, it's hard to say right now. I love the fact that he's long and would be a hard matchup, you know, at the wide receiver position. I don't think we go into his career here thinking that he's going to move to tight end. I think we go in thinking that he's going to be that big wide receiver that makes it real difficult to cover, particularly in a short field.
Coach, you know, a couple days after the bowl game, there was a lot of confusion, but this class stayed together. Why was it able to stay together through all that?
Well, because I think we eliminated confusion, you know, when we went back into the homes and all of our coaches were talking and were clear with why they were coming to Notre Dame. And I would say that that's the premise. All these decisions were not based upon Notre Dame has a stadium that seats 81,000 and plays on TV. These decisions were made based upon our distinctions at Notre Dame. You know, a faith-based education, you know, a community, you know, obviously the high academic standards, and now their belief as well, not just my belief and my staff's belief, but their belief that Notre Dame can play for a championship. So when you have both of those together, meaning a core for making your decision, and then having the belief that the football team is really going to compete for championships, it's going to keep them together. And I would say one last thing would be that we had a number of kids in this class that recruited each other and were coming for the same reasons, and they were communicating that to each other. And so that's what made this class such a strong class.
Brian, here to your far left. Considering some of the volatility at this time last year with how recruiting ended, how do you think you maybe improved or changed your big picture approach to recruiting this year, and what kind of impact do you think that had on where you are today?
I think if you look at last year and the situation that we had at the very end, you know, those can be avoided sometimes, you know, by not recruiting somebody. But I don't think we're ever going to get to a position where, when it comes down to making a decision with an 18-year-old, that once in a while those things occur. We don't want them to occur. I think what we did this year is that, you know, we made sure where that commitment was. In other words, if you're committed, that means you've ended this recruiting process. And I think in some instances, being firmer toward that end allowed this not to take shape. Now, I'm going to tell you, these are young guys. You know, things happen every year, and I think you have to be prepared for that too.
This is probably more of a question for next cycle, but did anything that happened in the Alabama game inform how you maybe want to adjust things next year, or what you need to recruit, or what kind of kids you need to recruit?
No, I know that, you know, it's easy to say, you know, when you look at the game, that there are coaching things that we're going to do better. But our players are going to continue to close that gap, even if it's a little bit, through this recruiting process. So I don't think we went into this and said, well, you know, we know Alabama looks like this, we've got to change what we do. I think we're just 3 years into this, and I think we continue to close the gap. So to answer your question, I don't think the Alabama game did anything in our minds to change the way we recruit, other than continue to recruit at the highest level.
Just lastly, on one guy specifically, Greg Bryant, the kid that you were involved with early, then you committed to Oklahoma, then all of a sudden you're 12-0 and he's jumping on board. Could you just talk about his recruitment, the job that Tony Alford and the staff did on him, and then just how much of an impact you think the season had on a kid like that, and how important it is to get kids that are going to make decisions on winning in addition to, you know, some of the other things that Notre Dame offers?
I think it's crucial. I think you have to have both to be able to get the players like a Greg Bryant. It can't just be on academics, you know. And we don't want them coming to Notre Dame just because of academics. We want the whole piece. And this was an indication that 12 wins definitely helps you in that process with a Greg Bryant. So, you know, we had 19 committed before the season started. And the guys that we got late, I think winning definitely had something to do with that.
Brian, over here. With Jalen Smith, you know, you talked about how he is a kid that helped recruit the other kids in the class and so forth. Do you see him being at a young age a guy that can be a leader on the field for you?
Yeah, I think leadership takes different forms, you know, and he can be a leader just by his own actions, you know, the way he handles himself, you know, he look you in the eye. I think those are all leadership qualities as well. Do I think he's going to come in and be the vocal leader like Manti was on the field? No, I don't think so. But his actions and the way that he prepares himself and the way he plays the game, I think a lot of people will want to model after him.
What have you learned from having guys of that caliber before that'll help you with the expectations that's going to surround this guy?
Well, I think when you're winning and you get those kind of players, there's a burning desire to want to continue down that road. You know, what is acceptable versus, you know, unacceptable is a higher bar, you know. 7-win seasons, 6-win seasons, unacceptable. 8-win seasons. You keep moving the bar higher and higher and higher when you recruit these kind of young men in this class. And we think we've got that, where we'll have an influx of players that will continue to push the entire program. And that's why we're excited about these kids.
And you're projecting him as a drop backer, and you've got a guy that really made a lot of strides at that position this year in Danny Spahn.
Yep.
Do you rotate those guys? Does Danny play somewhere else? How do
you know, one thing that we do a very good job is that you know, we play a lot of guys, and we don't just say there's 11 guys. You know, as you saw this year, we played a lot of guys. But I will tell you this, we're also going to put the best 11 on the field. And if Danny Spahn's the best 11, he's playing. If Jalen Smith's the best 11, he's playing. So we recognize the fact that everybody has a value to what we're doing, but we're also going to play the best players.
Last one from me, as you go out and recruit, certainly when you first came here, you were able to sell a lot of kids on opportunity. Hey, we need you to play early in your career. Now you seem to be getting more in a mode of you're building depth. How do you sell elite prospects on the fact that they're part of your depth?
Then they're not, you know, they're not elite players if they're afraid of competition. Those that back off and say, well, you know, you got 2 of these guys and you got 3 of those. Now, sometimes that makes a difference, granted, I understand that. But by and large, we've made the case in recruiting where we see you. And we're honest with it. Here's where we see you're at. And this is where you're going to be. And if you do this, you know, you're going to get your playing time. So I think from our end is the elite players have that, that confidence that no matter who's in front of me, I'm going to beat him up. And I mentioned that with Malik Zaire. Here's a young man that, if you look at the numbers, you'd go, well, why, you know, there's a lot of numbers at that position. That didn't bother him one bit. He had the confidence in his ability, so I'm looking for those kind of guys.
Coach, right here in the middle. Could you just talk a little bit about the recruitment of Andrew Antagnelli, the punter from California? Obviously, you lose a 4-year starter there.
Yeah.
It seems to be a luxury that you don't give a scholarship there, but you can bring him in as a preferred walk-on at a critical position of need.
I had a scholarship that was burning a hole in my pocket for one. But we did our work on it. We brought in, you know, what were considered the best punters. We got them in our camp. We observed them. We worked them out. And we didn't find the one we were looking for until later in the process. And Andrew's a guy that we believe can come in and compete for us. And so he comes in as a non-scholarship player with the opportunity to earn one down the road. So we've been at it a long time. I mean, we took the full year. This punting position was part of this recruiting process, and we finished with Andrew, and we feel good about it.
Do you see, and I know this is not something you can necessarily answer yet, but Nick Tosh as another option behind Kyle Brenza? How is the kicking deal shaking out? Because
well, those are conversations, as I mentioned, relative to fifth years and such that we would have here in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, he's right now an option, but you know, Kyle Brenza obviously is a strong option for us as well at that, you know, doing both, playing both positions.
sort of similar to Jalen Smith being at the drop linebacker position. Do you see Doug Randolph maybe exclusively at the hybrid position there, or could he even maybe move inside where there's some need there?
Yeah, I think we're talking about, you know, 18-year-old kids that, you know, I stood here before you last year with Kavari Russell. We didn't think he was going to start at corner. As you know, we're going to find a place to put the best players. He certainly has the size, the length, the ability to grow that, you know, he could play that position. There's no question. We'll see where it ends up with him, but I think we love the versatility that Doug Randolph gives us.
And on that same tone there with the offensive lineman, it seems there's a lot of height there, and tackle is going to be obviously a point of need there. Do you see somebody like Steve Elmer starting off at tackle?
Yeah, we think, you know, generally speaking, Mcglinchey and Elmer would be outside. You know, and then you've got, you know, the three guys inside, McGovern, Montelis, and Bivens. So, you know, that's how it looks right now. Hunter could play outside as well. He's got great, you know, flexibility in terms of being able to do both. So we think we're in a pretty good position where I think we've matched up those needs pretty good.
You said last week you had a conversation with Tate Nichols about possibly transferring.
Yeah.
Over to...
Well, yeah, his medical situation, I don't know if it's been fully resolved, but he has injuries that may incapacitate him for playing. So whether we have that official documentation yet, I'm not sure we do. Do we, Jen, on Tate? Do we know anything?
We do have it.
We do?
We have the paperwork to file it.
Okay, so we're close to being able to announce something on that pretty soon.
Thank you.
Yep.
Right over here. The experts are saying this is your best recruiting class. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I love agreeing with experts. It's a recruiting class that, you know, when you're looking at it from my perspective, you know, it meets the time and place as to where we are right now. You know, we're a team that, you know, has gone from unranked to, you know, top 10 ranking, top 5 ranking. At times we're the #1 team in the country. And I think your class begins to reflect that as you move forward. Secondly, I think as a staff, we feel it's our best class because the recruiting process for us, there was a lot of clarity. Tim McDonald did a great job of, you know, here's our needs, here's where we need to go. These are the kids that are going to fit what we're looking for. And I think the coaches would probably tell you that there was a lot of familiarity with the process, in other words, recruiting here to Notre Dame. And it made it easier for us to sell our message about Notre Dame and certainly after this season.
Can you talk about which few players you think had the most likely had the immediate impact?
Well, I think where there was a lot of graduation, and then sometimes when players leave before their time is completed here, the running back position would be one where there should be some young players competing there. The safety position, there should be some young guys competing at that. But every time that I make that call, it comes from somewhere. It comes from somewhere else. And that's the great thing about this class, that it wouldn't surprise me, but maybe for a couple of guys that are not maybe physically there yet, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody popped at any one of those positions and showed themselves to be a guy ready to play this year.
You talked about not having 85 scholarships last year. I don't think Notre Dame at 85 for at least 4 or 5 years, if not longer. Do you think you'll be at it this year?
We'll be at 85, yes.
Is it just the depth? Is that the key thing? Is that it gives you, allows you to have more play at special teams and all that sort of thing?
Absolutely. I mean, just there are a number of times where I didn't feel comfortable, going, live against our defense. At one time we had 5 offensive linemen, from that period of the USC game to the Alabama game that could go out there and function with 5 offensive linemen. I mean, that impacts your program. I'm telling you, it impacts the way you practice. You don't get a chance to tackle quite as much, and all of those things begin to show themselves when you're below the scholarship numbers.
Coach, to your left. This relates a bit to your last answer. You mentioned targeting profiles before and going across the board. It seems odd to suggest after you're bringing 5 offensive linemen, but you had so much attrition before this class. Do you have to target again the power position, the power profile for this upcoming cycle?
Yes. Yeah, we're still, we've addressed, we probably were in the red line, in terms of critical need. Next year it won't be quite in the red line of critical need. It'll move into still a need for us in our program is to continue to build on the O-line.
And just kind of a philosophical question for you. I think our first meeting ever, you talked about how big skill was something you've always recruited towards, and you'd love to have 40 guys running around in that profile. Does it change a little for you at Notre Dame because you are able to bring in athletes at power and skill positions where they don't have to move around as much?
No, we like that versatility still. If you look at a number of the defensive players, Jacob Matuska, Doug Randolph, heck, I mean, you could take 3 or 4 of the offensive linemen, and they can play another position as well. So I think we're still in that mode of recruiting that big skill player because he can fit so many roles that you have across the board.
Is that 6-7 range that you got this year kind of ideal? I know Lester as well, but basically 1. And is that kind of what you look for in the class?
Yeah, I don't know that we put a specific number on it. I still think we're trying to recruit by position as best we can. So maybe the fair answer is that big skill for us is a way for our end to have a little bit more flexibility when we're recruiting you. You know what I mean? That you could be on either side of the ball.
Ryan, over here. As the roster evolves, you talked about offensive line a little bit. Do you see any big areas of need, any glaring things for 2014?
Well, I think one of them was mentioned. We'll need to continue to recruit, certainly there, but on the defensive line as well. I think the O-line and D-line will be, an area that we'll continue to work towards. And then, I think then you look at, who your guys are in 13 to start to match, your depth needs. But I still think this is going to be centered in 2014 on the O-line and D-line.
And then the rules changes, any thoughts on those that you can share?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, the texting and calling that's going to be a lot. It's going to make recruiting even more intense because you have that, you have that access. So, I've got mixed emotions about it. It cleans up a lot of the little, problems that you may have in recruiting if, you text at the wrong you know, you shouldn't have texted somebody, or you picked up a call, whatever the case may be. I think it cleans up a lot of that, but I think there's going to be a lot more on the plates of the student athletes, and I don't know how good that is. I think that's the one that jumps out at me, and maybe, you know, now you can send anything relative to printed materials. I think that's probably the most significant change. It's going to require a full-time, you know, analysis of how you do your recruiting mailings now. You know, it was pretty simple. Everybody was standard. Now you may have some schools sending out, you know, fatheads and, you know, colored brochures, and, you know, I don't want to get it into a marketing and promotions department, you know what I mean? So that's probably one of the things that concern us a little bit.
Coach, up to your left, actually following up on that same line of thought, what effect does that have on your assistant coaches and how they balance being with the team here and how much time they have to spend texting and interacting with recruits?
That's a good question. I think that, you know, the contact periods are still going to be the contact periods. Now, we're just talking about, you know, more contact. No, we're talking about, you know, everybody that uses a, you know, a smartphone, they may use it just a little bit more. I don't think it's going to be to the point where it's going to distract our coaches. They're pretty sharp. They know that recruiting time is recruiting time, and I think we make enough time for it. So we'll have to see how it goes. I'm really interested to see what kind of volume it's going to put on the players and the student athletes, and whether coaches have to, you know, restrict it a little bit, you know. So I think that'll play out, though.
You mentioned the marketing department thing, and that some of the rules allow for a non-coach recruiting coordinator, and it seems like that could develop into sort of a recruiting staff. Is that something that Notre Dame plans to look into?
I think all of it will be something that we look at and find out, you know, what's the best way to put this together. So, you know, I think it's going to require some time to think it through. We don't want to be left behind on it either, and we won't be. I mean, we're going to be at the front of all the new, you know, trends and opportunities to continue to build your program the right way. And so if it turns out that we're going to have to go in that direction because of what's happening, we'll be ready for it. But I think we'll need some time to digest it first before we make any decisions on it.
And then on a completely different vein, back-to-back years now with Gunner and Jalen bringing in the top guy in Indiana. With the program that recruits nationally and can get guys from different places, is that important to bring in local guys when they're that highly rated?
I think it's important that if there's a player of that caliber, you need to recruit the heck out of him. And, you know, we do. But, you know, we go into every state in the country and we pull out one of their kids, if you will. You know what I mean? And it's a dogfight, you know? When you go down to Florida, or you go to Texas, or you go to California, I mean, you got a fight on your hands. We would like to think that if you came into Indiana for a great prospect, you'd have a fight on your hands with Notre Dame too.
And then last one for me. Last year you called Chris Brown sort of your sleeper pick, or a guy that might be underrated. Do you have a guy like that in this class that you think of as that type of player?
I don't know I want to set that precedent, you know, each year calling one of these guys out. I just think there's some guys that are really going to show themselves that maybe don't have the same regard as others, more so. And I think we've got a couple of those guys that, you know, and it happens every year. You know, Kaveri Russell, you know, he didn't have some of the same, you know, fanfare as some other guys, but yet, you know, he plays the cornerback position. I just think that we've got a couple of guys, and not just one, that are going to surprise. And I'm not going to give you one of them, because I think there's 3 or 4.
Coach, over here, could you talk briefly about the impact that Bob Elliott had on this process and all the things he had to deal with heading into his surgery today?
Well, yeah, as you know, Bobby Elliott is having a kidney transplant today. You know, he's got a match in his sister, so that is ongoing. Our thoughts and prayers are with Bobby and his family, and we know he's going to be fine. He's in great care. You know, all year he administered self-dialysis, you know, all year, you know, and yet never missed a day. was out there coaching and, you know, working, and, you know, he's just he's a great man, you know, and he's got great experience. I love having him on the staff, and he'll get through this. It's a tough time right now for him, but, you know, I think you're going to see him back. He's a fighter, and I expect to see him back on the field in the spring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good?
Any other questions here from anybody? Okay, thanks very much.
Great, thank you.